We've got you covered. This is News 4 Tucson.
Breaking down Arizona Wildcats football, I'm David Kelly. The Cats lose their season opener to the USC Trojans. Add another steak dinner to my ledger against my man, joining me now for a 10th season on TV and 11th overall in dissecting all that is Arizona football, Glenn Howell, U of A football class of 1985. And Glenn, let's dive into this. I'm going to start with a statement about the state of the U of A football program. And you know me, I like to throw on my AD's hat. If I were Greg Byrne, if I were Dave Hickey, well, that's what I'm going to do right here. And if I was Dave Hickey, I would make no decisions regarding the future of this program based on this season. Because this, in my opinion, is a throwaway year. I know the pundits are going to talk about how they're going to crown a champion at the end of this thing, which to me I think is crazy talk. They just utterly ridiculous to talk about a college football playoff and the importance of that in the middle of a pandemic when people are dying. But I just make no decisions. I don't fire Kevin Sumlin during the season. I don't fire Kevin Sumlin after the season. I let him and this new defensive coaching staff and the coaching staff from the offensive side that he's carried over, I let them coach this team, get these kids better, and move forward into next season, because the U of A athletic department and Dave Hickey, they had to let 22 people go this past month. 22 people from the athletic department. A lot of those people that we know and have known for years. And I understand why they had to make those moves, but I just don't think you make any moves with this football program until after next season.
Well, Dave, I think, since it's Masters weekend, I think Kevin Sumlin and his staff get a mulligan for this year, because this year is just a throwaway. I totally agree with you, because there's so many factors. And also from this first game, I think our kids were better coached this time. They looked like they were just coached well this game. And I think it was a good job by this new staff that he has on there, on our staff. And those guys did a great job. So I think we need to look forward to another year and see where we're going, with Grant Cannell doing a great job and then all the other guys developing around him.
All right, let's dive into what happened on the field Saturday in this 34-30 loss. And I want to start with the last two defensive possessions for the Arizona Wildcats. And essentially, they took the playbook from the Arizona State game against USC. They rushed 3, they dropped 8. And the other thing I want to say about this season is I've made the decision that I'm not going to be, because of the fact that I believe this is a throwaway season, I'm not going to be overly critical as I've been in the past. We're going to dissect this thing. We're going to talk about some of the things we liked and didn't like, and maybe some of the things we'd like to see done differently. But I'm not going to necessarily be overly critical of a lot of things based on this season. But I would have liked to have seen them be more aggressive defensively in those last two drives, not just rushing 3 and dropping 8. Yes, that worked for the majority of the game, but and it may have worked if you had Jaden Daniels on the other side of the ball, or whoever the quarterback was going to be for the Utah Utes. But that was Keaton Slovis, Glenn, on the other side of that ball. And Keaton Slovis is a closer. Put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers, and I would rather my defense go out being aggressive against a closer than passive against a closer.
First of all, we don't take the cues from Arizona State, which they did. We played that soft, and you're hearing it all over television everywhere. Soft coverage. I don't like that, just the word of soft coverage. We have to be played aggressive. We were playing aggressive before that. We were putting a little pressure on Clovis. We were doing a little pressure on him. But why go soft on a guy that just the last week went crazy on soft coverage? That's what I don't understand. But coaches have a plan. Coaches have a situation. We don't know the personnel. We don't know. But for me, if as a Monday morning quarterback, I would go aggressive.
Say what you want about Kedon Slovis. He was not very good for a large part, but what we've seen in the last 2 weeks is when it's money time, that kid knows how to make the plays. What was 12 of 14, I believe, on the last 2 drives for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 catches for something like 58 yards on the last drive alone. In 2 years, Glenn, U of A wins that game because in 2 years, Christian Roland Wallace's vertical jump is probably about 2 inches better than it was on Saturday.
But let me tell you something. The reason why Slovis wasn't good because the defense was playing well. That's why. It wasn't because he just had a bad game. We created that bad game. And I think that's a positive thing for our defense. I haven't seen our defense play like that in a long time. And I'm talking about because what's happening with the run game. USC couldn't run the ball. They weren't like shoving it down our throats. They weren't doing that because we had 300-pounders, and it's a different game when we have those big guys up front. The transfer guys, they played a great game. They were clogging up holes, and it was awesome. It was great to see Blackwell and those guys really playing well.
Yeah, Aaron Blackwell and Roy Lopez, I thought really played well on that down front. Trevin Mason made some nice plays up there as well. They did get gashed on some big runs in the second half. I thought there were some issues trying to set the edge. Anthony Pandy has to play better than what he did on Saturday in that ball game because you've got so many young linebackers. I mean, heck, Rourke Freeberg, a walk-on, was the one linebacker that kind of stood out. And I don't think, and Glenn, you can attest to this, that Jalen Harris had said he wanted to get 1 sack per ball game, but he just never really was able to get off in that game on Saturday.
Dave, I'm going to give a milk carton award every game, okay? That's going to be who we're going to put on the milk carton because we didn't see him. And Jalen Harris, I was wondering where he was at. He was in coverage most of the time as to being able to go and rush the quarterback. I would love to see him getting to his best thing that he can do is getting to the quarterback, and I'd like to see that more.
Yeah, and that goes back to, I think, what I was saying earlier. You know, you've got these athletes on the defensive side of the ball. You've got Jalen Harris. You've got some of the, granted, they were down some defensive backs. And right now, let's pause because I want you to hear what Kevin Sumlin had to say about the reason they played that last defensive possession the way that they did. Here was Kevin Sumlin after the ball game.
We were down a couple safeties. I don't know. We had some mix-ups there just because – number one, Jackson Turner had left the game a couple times and was out. Our safeties were thin there anyway, and we had a couple DBs that were out. So the ability to play man to man or a little tighter coverage right there, with our our thirds or second and thirds or and some multiple deals with nickel, we're a little bit out of that. So. That was the position we were in, and obviously USC took advantage of that.
Okay, yeah, so you got young guys. You were missing some guys there, Glenn, on the backside. Jackson Turner was out at that point of the ball game. But I think when you've got athletes, and going back to my point, I'd rather see guys like Jalen Harris and some of these defensive backs moving forward to a stationary target like Kedon Slovis versus trying to figure out crossing wide receivers, something that they really have never done before.
For me, and I don't get paid $3 million a year, so I'm not the one. But for me, I would put that's where you discover if a guy's ready to play at this level. You let those young guys go. Let them go. Let them go play. I don't care if there was young guys on the back end. We got to put pressure on them to make the play. Make the play. And that's what we have to be able to do. I think that's something that I would do as a coach, but I'm not the coach. So they had other reasons, and you got to respect what they said, but you got to take the loss too for what they made the decision.
All right, let's flip it over, Glenn, to the offensive side of the ball. Grant Gunnell, I thought, had his first fourth quarter comeback. And again, when we talk about Kedon Slovis and closers, I think we've got the makings of a closer, because for as great as it was to watch Khalil Tate and the excitement that he brought to the field, how many times did we talk about over that 3-year course did you really believe that Khalil Tate could bring you back and win a game in the fourth quarter? And I don't think that's going to be a problem with this kid. I put up a shot on Twitter of how he walked into the huddle down 4 with 3.5 minutes to go with a smile on his face. That's the kind of kid that I want in the fourth quarter with the game on the line, and I think they've got that in Grant Gunnell. I didn't expect him to run 13 times in this ball game. A lot of those runs, I think, and that maybe goes back to maybe one of my biggest concerns offensively was, one, he had to run because the receivers weren't open in a lot of those instances. Those weren't run by design, and I also think that, 2 touches, I believe it was 2 touches for Jamari Joyner is not enough. Two touches for Jamari Joyner and 2 touches for Booby Curry. Actually, it was 4 because Jamari had a couple of runs or a couple of those out passes, which they call runs. But you've got to get the ball more into the hands of those playmakers, especially in a situation where you had Brian Castile out on Saturday.
Well, let me first give hats off to Stanley Berryhill. I mean, the kid played his buns off. He just played exceptionally well. I think it was almost like, you don't have me a starter and I've been coming back. I've been playing last year and he showed out, and I thought he did an excellent job of making crucial catches when we needed to make the catches and made big plays. Jamari Joyner needs to get the ball to him a little bit more. Trayvon Cunningham, he needs to get the ball a little bit more because he's going to be a deep threat. We've already seen that. We have to be able to spread it out. And then I really want to see if we can do that, we can get the tight end involved. I don't know why they're not involving the tight end as much as they could. And, it's just that they have to be able to do that. And I think that'll open it up for the other guys.
I think it was a lot of mass protection stuff in that game against USC. They were concerned, so they had Walma staying in. They had Brightwell staying in on a lot of those pass plays to give themselves a little bit more leverage against that outstanding USC defense. In terms of the offensive line, I thought they were decent. I thought the left side of the line was a lot better than the right side of the line. I think, Robert Conjal had some issues at times in the ball game at that right guard spot. But overall, I thought the line played decently enough. And like I said last week, this Grant Gunnell, you don't necessarily have to give him a lot of time. He held the ball too long in a lot of those instances. Really, there was only one of those sacks that I put on the offensive line. There was a play, I believe it was in the third quarter when Jordan Morgan got beat. But other than that, those sacks were on Grant Gunnell.
Yeah, you got to we talked about that in the pregame. We talked about saying that he has to get rid of the ball faster. I think he's gotten a little better, but he's got to get better. He's got to get better in that. If he does that, throw it out of bounds. Just get out of there and just throw it out of bounds. Get something, live to see another day. I think he has to do that. The offensive line, I thought we ran the ball well. Gary Brightwell is just a horse back there. He's a great running back, and we got to be able to establish him. If we can establish him, everything opens up for us.
Good bounce-back game, I thought, from the start of it anyway, for Lucas Havrisek after he missed the 1 field goal, came back and made 3 more and hit that clutch 51-yarder, which really put the Wildcats in a position to take that ball game late. In terms of special teams, Glenn, though, do you think it's time to get rid of the kickoff? Because, I think we had 2 kickoff returns in this entire ball game.
Yeah.
There's something to me that it's just it's become, because these kids are so good now, either that or you're going to have to go to what the NFL does, and you're going to have to move the kickoff back so that you can put the ball in play in that instance. Because I think these kids are so strong now that if you're going to continue to kick off from the 35, you might as well just take that play out of the ball game. Not to mention you're going to keep kids safer if you do that.
Yeah, I think we should do the kickoff in the last 2 minutes of each half. That's what they should do. Because then you never know. You might need that play to have a big play. Just the last 2 minutes of each half, I think, would be a good thing.
That said, I think the 2 times they did return it, Tavion Cunningham gives you that element potentially of being that guy that, given the opportunity, can take one to the house.
Yep, and I think that you move it back maybe 5 yards, and then you have the last 2 minutes of each half, and then you get to kick it off, and then that's where you have to defend, and then also you have a chance to make a big play.
As encouraging, Glenn, as U of A's performance was in this game against USC, they might still be exactly where we thought they were going to be, a team that might win 3 games and a team that might not win any games because Colorado is 2-0, so they're a little bit better than we thought they were. UCLA whipped Cal on Sunday, 34-10, so they might be a little bit better than we thought they were. U of A, from what they looked like in Game 1, is a little bit better than we thought they were. So your positioning probably hasn't really changed because of what we've seen from those other teams as well.
Yeah, I think that now our chances of winning games have maybe gone up 10 to 15 to 20%. Okay, that's what I think is a legitimate thing, that we have a chance of winning those games. But the other teams have gotten better. I saw that Cal game. Wow, man, I thought Cal was better than that. Cal didn't look very good at all. They just looked, and UCLA was just looking pretty good. They did a great job, and they played some defense, and it's going to be a tough little road for us, but I'm encouraged by what we have going into our next game. Our next game that I think we have a good shot, and I'm really confident about Grant Cano.
All right, that next game will be Washington coming up on Saturday, and we definitely want to send our well wishes out to all of the folks up in Tempe and what they're dealing with the Arizona State football program, Herm Edwards and the Sun Devils, and fighting through a COVID situation that cost them their game this past week against California and has already cost them their game next week against Colorado. So we hope that those folks get on the mend, because we definitely want to see them come down here full strength when they're set to play the University of Arizona in December. All right, Huskies and Wildcats will be back to preview that game for you on Saturday.